Survivor Series is done and there is a lot to talk about. Now, before we get further into these hot takes, if you are wondering where my review is, it is already up on my channel, so just go back in my previous videos and you'll be able to find that. But this right here is hot takes, where every single week after Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, and PLEs, I ask you over on Twitter to submit any hot takes, bold predictions, thoughts, concerns, or whatever else you may have on the show, and then I read them out right here on the screen, and we just kind of have a fun time with it. But before we get into this thing, make sure you leave a like on this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications, and keep coming back every single day right here, because we upload wrestling videos every single day. All right, let's take a look at your hot takes. The OG Bloodline shouldn't have won. Well, this is definitely a hot take to start things off, that the big team of Roman Reigns, CM Punk, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, and Sami Zayn shouldn't have won this match, and that it should have been the new Bloodline picking up the dub. And yeah, I understand the concern about this, but I also am excited to see where WWE is going with this story. Because if the OG Bloodline would have lost to the new Bloodline, well, then I don't really know how we go forward from there with everything going on in the story. Because CM Punk and Roman Reigns, they wouldn't have had that moment where they won, and then Punk saying to Paul Heyman that a favor is owed and he is going to collect it at some point. Like, that's the story moving forward. Something about Punk, Heyman, and Roman, and this favor that is owed is going to come to play in the future. Now, I also can see the other side of it, where the new Bloodline looks weak AF. They look like they don't stand a chance. They were a united group going up against this group, and somehow they still faltered and fell to them. Like, that's a big issue for this new Bloodline, and maybe that's going to bring in some questions about who the real tribal chief is. Maybe there's a certain final boss that is going to be brought back into the story at some point. Now, we can talk about The Rock again later on in just a little bit, because I'm sure there's going to be a hot take about that here. But with The Rock maybe getting involved again in the story, that gives us some legs now that Roman Reigns has something going on outside of the Bloodline. It's not just his fight trying to get the Ula Fala back. He now has to wonder, what is this favor that CM Punk is owed from Paul Heyman? And I just don't know if we could have got that story if the OG Bloodline would have taken the L. I don't know how we move forward with it. I don't know what the issues could have been within the Bloodline. Like, I didn't really want to see Sami fighting Roman again, or Sami fighting Punk, or Jimmy and Jey fighting Roman. Like, we've been down that road. I mean, actually, Sami fighting Punk sounds kind of fun. But the rest of the stuff, we've been down there before. And now it's about healing. It's about growing. It's about moving forward as a group. It's about them trusting each other once again, and a loss? I don't know how they could have ever trusted each other again. It's not like the OG Bloodline is fully back together, right? Like, these guys are all single stars, minus Jimmy Uso. They're all single stars working together in a group. And if we're just to say, okay, let's put them back together as a group, I don't know what we do with them. Like, we're not about to see the Usos hold on to tag team gold again. We're not about to see Sami Zayn win the Intercontinental Championship and bring it into the Bloodline. We're just not doing that right now. So, like, I don't know what they could have done if they decided to keep this group as a group. This is a group that got back on the same page, but there's going to be issues moving forward. There's going to be concerns about allegiances. Where does CM Punk go from here? Where is Paul Heyman? What about Jimmy Uso and that little nod to Paul Heyman? Is there something there as well? And like, Sami Zayn's a single star who was just Intercontinental Champion not that long ago, and Jey Uso just recently became a main event player by winning that IC Championship and then losing it very shortly after. This win right here for the Bloodline was kind of needed. And again, I understand that the OG Bloodline looks really strong, and that the new Bloodline doesn't look as strong, and that's the group, so you kind of want the group looking very, very strong moving forward. I think this was necessary for the story and to get to where we need to go going on the road to WrestleMania. Roman Reigns is going to want that Ula Fala back. He's still going to be after that, but at least now there's layers to this story. Where does CM Punk align? Where is Paul Heyman's allegiance truly at? What's going on with Jimmy Uso? Does Jey Uso fully trust Roman Reigns again? Blah, blah, blah. There's so many things to get out of this. I love that the OG Bloodline picked up the win, even though I had predicted the new Bloodline to win. Now we're going to talk about The Rock. The Rock should have come out. It was the perfect moment to show up at Survivor Series. Now, I understand why everybody wanted to see The Rock, myself included. I was really hoping that the end of the show was going to have The Rock be involved in some way, shape, or form, especially after Bad Blood, where he showed up for all of 15, 20 seconds and then left. This felt like this needed The Rock at the end, and it felt like we were going to get it as WWE really dragged out those last 5 minutes of the show. Like, it seemed we were getting the return of The Rock, and then we didn't. But the more I zoom out from this story and the more I sit into it, I think this is the right call. Yeah, the pop of seeing The Rock would have been huge, but we also just got that pop not long ago with Bad Blood when Rock came out at the very end right there, and people were actually upset that The Rock didn't do more. So if there's no things going on right now for The Rock, like if there is no story right here at the moment that he can get invested in and get involved in, then what's the point of bringing him back, right? At least this way, we got a cool ending with the OG Bloodline standing tall together in a direction that we didn't really think they were going to go. Yeah, I would have loved to see The Rock too. I would have loved to see The Rock get involved in that main event. I would have loved to see him get in the Wargames. Would have loved to see him be the reason that the new Bloodline wins and it be revealed that The Rock is with the new Bloodline this entire time. That'd be a crazy cool story, but it didn't happen. And I don't feel gypped by it. I know a lot of people do feel gypped. A lot of people think that The Rock should have been there, or at least something should have happened to tease The Rock coming back or whatever they had to do. But there was a lot of people who said that this show sucked simply because The Rock didn't show up. And I think we all need to lower our expectations for returns and things that are not announced on the show. A lot of the times we as wrestling fans, especially WWE fans, expect a big return or moment or angle or something like that at every PLE. And well, I love it when we get those things. It's not always going to happen. Sometimes you just have to tell the story that you're telling in order to get to the next part. And I really do feel like Survivor Series Wargames was just telling the story it needed to tell to wrap up some of the loose ends, to create some intriguing plot points moving forward, and to have a fun night. That's really all it was at the end of the day. This is just before the road to WrestleMania, so like you don't want to risk talent getting injured, so you don't put everybody in a bunch of different matches that are incredibly, insanely difficult to wrestle, and you don't bring back part-timers and overexpose them to the business in hopes that they generate a pop or something like that. Like, just save them for WrestleMania. That way you know that they are good to go for WrestleMania season. And if The Rock is coming back for WrestleMania, good lord, it would suck to find out if like somehow, some way he got injured in an angle at Survivor Series Wargames. You know what I mean? Even if there's no physicality, dude could trip and fall backstage and that could be it for Rocky. So just I understand. I want Rock too. I want The Rock all the time on my screens. I want the final boss right here every single time. But it's just, I understand why WWE maybe chose not to pull the trigger here today. We have Saturday night's main event coming up in a little bit. We have Royal Rumble at the start of February. There's a lot of big events that are coming up that you might want to save Rock's return for. And if they don't do it on that and they just do it on a random episode of SmackDown, well, that'll be a big pop on SmackDown as well. So yeah, I missed The Rock. I wish he was here today too, but nothing you can do about it. I don't know how the crowd translated on TV being there live. I thought the crowd brought it all night. I felt like the Wargames matches delivered, even though the one was built more than the other, and the show flowed well. The ending was drawn out a bit, but solid show. Oh, Phil, you're not gonna like my answer here. But what was up with the crowd in Vancouver? I don't know if it just wasn't picked up right on TV, or if like the crowd was actually quiet, or what was going on, but oh my goodness, Vancouver, we could barely hear you on TV. But it wasn't even just hearing them. I can't get over Jey Uso's entrance where not a single soul in the arena was standing up yeeting with him. I don't know how that happened, but I shouldn't say a single soul, but like it really seemed like not a lot of people were actually interested in yeeting along with Jey Uso. It's kind of embarrassing to say, but I think maybe a quarter of that arena was actually yeeting all over the place, or at least from what I could tell on screen. Maybe I'll give you guys half the arena at best. But it wasn't even just for the main event. All night long, the crowd was tired and quiet. Like, you could tell everybody was gassed after the very first Wargames match. But even for the first half of that match, it felt like the crowd was already dead. And, like, that was the first match of the night. I even had a buddy that went to the show. His name is Botch Guy on YouTube if you're ever looking for him. And he said the crowd was quiet. There was times that people were loud, but for the most part, it was very, very quiet. He tried to get some chants going, and even that didn't work. People were just like looking at him saying like, what, you're chanting at a wrestling show? What's that about? For those of you that don't know, you can chant at a wrestling show. It's actually encouraged. And I'm not actually trying to crap on Vancouver alone. Toronto was not great at Money in the Bank either, and I was there for it. Now, I will admit, it always feels like it's louder in the arena than it maybe actually is because you're there in person, and that sound translates a lot better when you're actually there in person as opposed to listening to it on TV. But even in Toronto, at times I thought, man, this crowd is a little bit quiet here. So what's going on with us Canadian crowds? We have been spoiled for WWE shows within the last, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, something like that. They have come to Toronto a lot. They've been to Montreal. Now they've been out to Vancouver. We're getting another pay-per-view, Elimination Chamber in March in Toronto. We better start getting loud, Canada. Otherwise, I don't know if WWE is going to keep bringing back these shows year after year after year when there is a worldwide demand with audiences that are twice, 3 times, 4 times, even 5 times as loud as us. So this is my challenge to all you Canadians. The next time WWE comes to Canada, the next time you are at a show, be loud. Don't sit on your hands. Chant, have fun, and let's have a great time. And make sure WWE keeps coming back to Canada, because I don't know about you guys, but I love how often we're getting shows lately. I don't even think it's a hot take at this point, but we don't need the Wargames set up at every Survivor Series, just when the storyline actually calls for it. Yeah, I think I have to agree right here. WWE doesn't need a Survivor Series Wargames match every single year. They don't always need to have 2, because we kind of ran into this in the past with Hell in a Cell and TLC and Extreme Rules and whatever other type of gimmick pay-per-views WWE decided to introduce through the years. We felt like a lot of the shows were forced. A lot of the feuds were forced into it, and as a result, it devalued the actual structure, whether it be Hell in a Cell or you name it, like I said, TLC. Because you could say this year that the men's Wargames match absolutely belonged inside of Wargames, but the women's one, it maybe did, maybe didn't. I'm glad it was a Wargames match because it was incredible, but it was kind of forced and it came together very, very quickly to the point that we were wondering, are we even going to get a women's Wargames match? What I think is going to help Survivor Series moving forward is that you either do introduce a way to have a Survivor Series traditional 5-on-5 match every single year, and if it needs to be elevated to the next level, you do it inside of Wargames. I think that's probably the best way to move forward, because that way it's still Survivor Series, you still have this element of multiple people forming teams and all of that, but if the feud is really heated, then you up it to the next level and you build inside Wargames. I think that's the answer we need. I love the idea of Wargames coming around at Survivor Series. I don't love the idea of it always being once a year. I also don't love the idea of forcing it to always be one men's, one women's. If you could have just one women's Wargames match on the card, that could easily main event the show. But when you start having 2, it maybe can devalue one of the matches, and it could also make it feel not as special. I did have this idea during the live stream though, and I don't know if anybody else agrees with me on it, but we should have a variation to the Wargames style match. I like the idea of having a classic Wargames. I also like the idea of having a 5v5 Survivor Series elimination match at Survivor Series. But why can't we somewhat combine the 2? Can you imagine how much more interesting and exciting Wargames could get if you actually had eliminations take place in the match? And imagine if those eliminations could happen at any given time. You could get crazy scenarios just like in the actual 5v5 Survivor Series matchups, where you could have a 4-on-1, you could have a 5-on-1 even, you could have a 2-on-2, it could just break down. You could get a pinfall in the first minute and a half or something like that, and then all of a sudden you have the advantage all the way through. Plus, then winning the Wargames advantage actually gives you an advantage, not just waiting there until everybody enters the ring. Personally, I love this idea, but I want to hear your thoughts about it in the comments. Hot take, but we, myself included, work ourselves up far too often about big returns, especially in Bloodline segments. Though they happen often, we shouldn't expect them so we aren't disappointed when they don't happen. It tends to ruin our overall feelings about the show. This is spot on right here. Absolutely 1,000,000% agree. Anytime that you go into a wrestling show and you enjoy the wrestling for what it is, and from start to finish they put on a good wrestling show that entertains the crowd, then they have done their job. Everything else is all a cherry on top. It's all extra. And we can't expect a great return every single week. We can't expect a big moment every single pay-per-view because WWE simply can't feasibly do that. There's not that many big moments that they have available, especially when it comes to like returns back to WWE. If we're talking about The Rock coming back to WWE, if he just showed up every single pay-per-view, it wouldn't be special anymore. And the fact that we were there waiting, hoping to see The Rock and we didn't, means the next time we see The Rock, we're gonna pop and react that much bigger because we want to see The Rock back on our TV. And it's also not fair to the actual wrestling show and the wrestlers who put on a crazy good episode, whether it be Raw, SmackDown, or a PLE. Every time that they go out there in the ring and they put their bodies on the line for our entertainment, and if they have got a great reaction from the crowd as a result, you don't need that big return. You don't need that big cherry on top every single time. From time to time, it's great. Do not get me wrong. But every time that we go into a PLE and say, oh, this person's going to return, this person's going to debut, this person's going to get called up, and all that other type of stuff, it kind of ruins the experience for the wrestling show because you're just hoping for a big moment and then to go on to the next big moment. Enjoy the ride, not the destination. Shinsuke shouldn't have won the title yet. It's way too early to give him the title. LA Knight's title run was way too new, and to have him lose that fast was wrong. Here's the thing about title runs. People think that the title runs need to be a year long in order to be successful. WWE back in the Attitude Era would have titles change hands every few weeks like it was nothing. Now, as for LA Knight losing his United States Championship here to Shinsuke Nakamura, I personally don't hate it, but I understand why people probably don't like it. LA Knight's incredibly popular with the crowd, and a lot of people wanted to see this man get this United States Championship and go on a great run. And while the run has been good, it really did feel like it was just starting to pick up some momentum. And since he's lost the title now, well, there's not really anywhere to go with that because he's no longer champion. But that might be exactly what LA Knight needed because he was almost in a funk being stuck as the United States champion. People were into it, but like it's not like people were sitting on the edge of their seat for his matches. A lot of people were like, we know where this is going. We have an idea that he's going to retain the title and move on to the next person. And a lot of people thought that was going to happen here with Nakamura, where it was going to be a one-off and then he was going to be done and move on to the next one. The hit it and quit it, if you will. But because of the swerve that was pulled and Nakamura, who just recently got rebranded and repackaged as this absolute badass, I call him Darth Nakamura, he is now looking like $1,000,000. Putting the United States title on him is not a bad thing. And what this does allow now is it allows LA Knight to go back to the chase. I think the best part about LA Knight's run up the card was that he was chasing something. He was either chasing the admiration of the fans, or he was chasing that Roman Reigns championship match, or he was chasing the United States title in Logan Paul, and I guess before that he was chasing Bray Wyatt. He was always chasing, but as the champion, I can't sit here and confidently say he lit the world on fire. He was a solid champion, but I think him chasing the United States title, trying to get it back from Nakamura, using the excuse that he got the mist in the eyes on Friday night and he wasn't at 100% for this match, and he vows and he says for sure that the next time they face, it's gonna be his title. He's winning it back. Like, I kind of like that story for LA Knight. And if that's not the case, if LA Knight is not going back after the United States title, well, then I think he's got to move up the card. I wonder if he could be possibly switched over to Monday Night Raw and be viewed as a challenger for the World Heavyweight title. I mean, people might be into that. Seeing him go up against Gunther might not be the worst thing in the world. But we'll see where it goes. I personally think LA Knight is not done with the United States title. It's late at night. That's why I'm struggling to speak. It's not done. He's not done with it, okay? It's just simply put, he's not done with the United States title. He's going to try to get it back, all right? I'm almost certain on it. They are burying Liv Morgan. They keep making her lose as champion. I don't know if the term buried is right for Liv Morgan because it's not. She's still the Women's World Champion, and she still is featured in a pretty massive storyline alongside of Dominic Dominic Mysterio and Raquel Rodriguez and stuff going on with the Judgment Day. So I wouldn't sit here and say that she's buried, because the term buried means done. Like, you are not recovering from it. It is over. They are purposely trying to get you out of the company. They don't want you there anymore. You're done. Okay, you're buried. That's not Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan, however, does fall under the category of the slimy Weasley heel champion who is never taken seriously. And unfortunately, they were building up Liv Morgan to be taken seriously up until Wargames. I think Liv Morgan winning the I just about called it the Grand Slam crown jewel ring, whatever the hell it's called, the crown jewel ring. Ever since she won that thing, it felt like she has kind of regressed on the card. A lot of focus has been put back into Rhea Ripley and her return, which, to be fair, Rhea Ripley's a massive star, but Liv Morgan is not viewed as this credible champion right now. And I really hope WWE makes an effort to establish her as a true threat as a champion moving into the new year. They undid a lot of the work that they did with her over the last couple of months within Wargames, and yeah, that loss hurts Liv Morgan. There's no question about it. But I don't think the term buried is right for her. She still has the World Heavyweight Championship, like I said. She still has a lot of momentum, and she is one of the most popular stars on WWE TV today, being positioned alongside of Dominic Mysterio. So I'm not too worried for Liv Morgan. I think they'll rebuild her just fine. She might lose the title by the start of the new year, maybe at Royal Rumble or something like that. Who knows, but Liv Morgan will be okay. Finn Balor getting involved in Priest versus Gunther feels like 5 steps backwards. It completely contradicts Gunther's arc, and not to be a downer, but I'm just not excited for Finn and Priest to run it back. I honestly don't think that this is a hot take. Yeah, Finn Balor and Damian Priest, we probably had an idea that they were going to revisit this feud in the future, considering Finn Balor said that anytime he goes after the World Heavyweight title, he is going to be there to stop him. So at least it's consistent with the story that they're telling, but yeah, I wasn't that interested in seeing Finn Balor attack Damian Priest. Like, we're probably going to get Balor versus Priest at Saturday night's main event, or gosh, who knows, maybe just on a random episode of Raw again. But that is going to be a direction we're moving in. Priest is going to be pissed at Finn Balor. They're going to probably have one more match, and then who knows where they go from there. But I do have to agree, it does feel like some steps back. It felt like Damian Priest was being built up in a completely different direction than the Judgment Day, and it felt like Gunther was going in a different direction as well, as he was a little more like unsure of himself. And I don't think Gunther has regained his confidence from this match either. Like, Gunther struggled with Priest. He straight up did, and Priest just had a bad shoulder the entire night. If it wasn't for Finn Balor, I still think Priest might have got the job done over Gunther. It's kind of crazy to say, but Damian Priest seems to be the kryptonite to Gunther. And yes, Priest is 0-2 against Gunther, but the way that he fights him, this seems like this could be a rivalry that we see go on for a lot longer than just the near future. Now, I will say this, that I'm glad that Damian Priest isn't like going backwards into the tag team division or anything like that. At least he's still a single star, and they're going to continue to try to build him up as a single star so he can go back to that World Heavyweight title in the future. But it does suck to see Priest take the L and go right back to the previous feud that he was in that people were really tired of. It's not the greatest direction for Priest, but at least it's within the confines of the story that they were already telling. But those are your hot takes. Let me know any other ones that you have down in the comments below. And also, while you're down there, you might as well leave a like on this video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, turn on those notifications, and keep coming back every single day right here, because we upload wrestling videos every single day. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care and have a great one.